Hi, Kelly. How's it going?
Pretty good, Lori. How are you?
Good. So, how's your week been?
Busy. Had a
Yeah.
lot of people come in this week, but hanging in there.
Okay. Well, I need to talk to you about the records review that we did last week. We've
Okay.
been looking at charts. We're going to have a site visit soon, and I noticed that you're pretty behind in your paperwork. Now, is that a surprise to you, or are you aware of it?
It's not that much of a surprise. I kind of had a sense that that was going on, but I've just been so busy that I just kind of pushed it aside. I'll get to it later, and apparently later is now.
So, I know you are doing a really, really good job with your clients, and I want to sort of compliment you on how I know they're important to you, and I know you are doing a good job, and I know, everybody is being seen, and, so I just want to say that I appreciate your work and how hard you're working and what a good job you're doing.
Okay.
But we do have to figure out how to also get the paperwork done because, that could get in our way in terms of funding and all those other kinds of things. So the paperwork has to get done too. And I wonder what ideas you have about how you could get caught up.
Well, I guess the hardest part for me is I prioritize my clients because I didn't really come into social work to do paperwork. I know it's part of the job, but I have such a hard time if a client comes in crisis. I want to see them and I'm going to sacrifice the paperwork. So I don't really know ideas what to do other than, I guess, sticking to my guns and being really mindful of prioritizing paperwork, but it just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, right. I know that, I totally agree with you. In truth, I think it's more important that we get good care than that we document good care. But we do have to remember that our ability to deliver good care would be, that it would be a problem because, when they come in and audit us, if we don't pass the audit, then we're going to spend a lot of time dealing with the audit thing,
Yeah.
and they might not give us as much money, and then we might not be able to see as many people. So in fact, getting our paperwork done, although it doesn't seem like it's that important,
Right.
it really does support the work.
Okay.
So, and mindfulness is good, but maybe mindfulness isn't enough because my sense is you're pretty mindful.
Yeah.
I mean, when I brought up the paperwork, you didn't say, "Oh, really?" Right? So you're not paying attention. You just
Okay.
haven't yet figured out how to fit it in.
Yeah.
So thinking about your typical week, is there a space in there to put paperwork?
I would say if I had to pick a time, usually I don't schedule clients until when I come in at 7:30, I don't have a client really usually until 8. So I do have that half hour where I could start to be really intentional about making sure prioritizing paperwork during that time and then maybe setting a time at the end of the day as well. But then things always seem to get pushed back, so maybe that's not ideal either because if I'm saving it for the end of the day, I usually typically run over on appointments, so I got to make all those phone calls, and I do those instead of the paperwork. So I guess if I had to pick a time, I probably should do something either probably early afternoon. I don't know.
Okay. Well, so it sounds like the morning time is a pretty good pick.
Yeah, that's usually always open.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to see a client at 7:30 in the morning, so I'd rather get some paperwork done and that feels better to me.
Okay, so that sounds like an easy one, but it's probably not enough
Right.
to get you caught up. So let's think about, so you said early afternoon.
I was kind of just throwing that out there because kind of eliminated the end of the day. I would prefer the end of the day, but I am also realistic enough to know that.
Yeah, that's really good self-awareness
Thank you.
because I think it is good to realize that we all have limits and that one of your limits is things end up building up.
Yeah.
So some thoughts, and if you have thoughts, you volunteer them
Okay.
too. So one idea might be, what if you scheduled your first client a little later?
Would you say, like, kind of thinking about everything I have to catch up, would you say, like, giving myself an hour each morning? Or...
If you did an hour a day, I think you would catch up. And I've been on top of it enough so that we have a fair amount of time before the audit.
This isn't like crisis yet.
Right. So if you started really focusing on paperwork for an hour in the morning, would that fit in your schedule? So if you scheduled your first client at 9 instead of 8:30, would that work?
I think so. Because that way, I guess what appeals to me about the morning is that more than likely no crises have come up yet, so I can kind of focus on there. I'm not distracted, unless, of course, I get some crazy phone call that I'm checking my voicemails in the morning and someone's in crisis and I feel like I have to attend to it right away. That would be something that might trip me up a little bit. That if I come in the morning and then I'm prepared to do my paperwork, but I'm checking my voicemails and so is needing an emergency appointment, I might tend to that and be distracted from paperwork.
Do you think waiting to check your voicemail till 9 would work?
In theory, yes. I would have to be really intentional about it.
So let's talk about the difference. How much of a difference does it make to your client in crisis if they hear from you at 8:30 or they hear from you at 9?
Depending on the client. But if I'm thinking, I think I get really emotional about it. Like, I care about my clients, and so I'm like, oh my goodness, they're in crisis, and if I don't call them back right away, they're going to think that I'm not mindful of what their needs are, and I don't want them to feel like their crisis and their needs are important. So that's like my emotional side, wanting to do that. But I think if I rationally look at it,
right.
Probably...
Well, I'm suggesting you don't listen to the voicemail until...
Like, just completely disregard it?
Yeah, like, don't do your voicemail till you've done your paperwork.
Okay.
Because I think it's legitimate and real, and that part of you is important, that emotional part. That's part of what makes you good at what you do. But I think that part of you, once you've heard the crisis, is gonna
get ramped up.
Right. And it's gonna be hard for you to focus on the paperwork.
It's very true.
But it wouldn't be unusual you could even tell your clients, I start work at 9.
Okay.
So at 9 o'clock is when I listen to my voicemail.
That feels actually a little bit better.
So that they even know that's when you get information. And so they would not be surprised then if you don't call them back till after 9.
That actually, like, it feels better to think about it that way. Because I guess I just don't want them to feel invalidated. Like, I didn't want to call them back right away because their crisis wasn't important enough. But if the expectation is I start checking voicemails at 9, that's when you can expect follow-up after 9. That actually, like, it feels very respectful then. Like, they know, like, what's coming.
Right. And that's good boundaries. No one really, it is not actually appropriate for people to expect that you're available 24/7. And so here they know, okay, 9 o'clock is when you're going to check your voicemail, and so I think that makes sense. And then that will give you time to do your paperwork in the morning.
Yeah.
And does that, and moving, I realize that moves things back half an hour from what you're doing now or whatever, but do you think you could still do, meet your productivity and everything with just that half an hour shift?
Yeah. I really think that probably is the best, because if I was trying to do, like, leave the hour at the end of the day open, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to, like, process that all. I think that should work as far as meeting everything.
Okay. And so what supports could we offer to make this easier for you? Is there anything else I can do to support your sticking to this plan and getting moving on your paperwork?
Well, I think the accountability pieces, because, like what you said before, like, I am mindful and I'm aware of what I'm doing. I just don't necessarily always follow through. So, like, that kind of check in a little bit, not micromanaging, but just kind of like checking in and encouraging to stick with it,
Okay.
I think is helpful for me.
Okay. All right. So the next time we meet, I'm going to expect a report from you. And the report should have two pieces, not you have to write this out or anything. You could if you wanted.
Right.
If that would help you, you could do it. But just how many charts have you completely caught up,
Yeah.
over the course of this week? Because, we've red flagged all the things that are missing or whatever isn't done in each chart. So, I want to know how many charts you managed to get through in the coming week. And I want to know that for two reasons.
Okay.
One is as a way to give you that accountability, to see that you're actually doing it, but also to see if this plan works.
Okay.
Because if not, we may encounter some barrier or other. And so if it's not doing it, because that'll help us predict how long it'll take you to get caught up. So if it's not really working, then we can talk about what else to...
Okay.
what
Yeah,
else
because on
to
paper
do.
it sounds like it
Right.
should work.
Right, but we don't know, sometimes things don't work quite
Right.
the way and it sounds like you have anticipated your own emotional barrier, and we've sort of dealt with that by you're not actually listening to the voicemail till you've done the paperwork,
Right.
so that you won't get distracted from that. But there may be other internal or external barriers we weren't expecting.
Clients show up and wanting to be seen right away or whatever. That's another one that may come up, is sometimes you have those clients in crisis just presenting to the office.
So how could you handle that?
Well, we could have our in-house staff see them versus me if we weren't scheduled, or meeting them in the lobby, like validating that, okay, here you're in crisis, and then letting them know, similar to the voicemails, I'm not available till after 9 to either meet with you or to address this.
Could you do that?
I think so. I think knowing that I have the backing of you too helps, that I'm not being insensitive to clients, or I'm not being lazy, or not being aware of clients who need something. So knowing that I have your support in that actually helps quite a bit as well.
Okay. So you said we could have our in-house staff do it, or I could go out and tell them I'm not available till 9, but this is when I'll see you.
Yeah.
Which of those two plans do you like better?
Probably, I'm caught on both of them because I don't want to inconvenience in-house staff, even though that's their role. They might have paperwork to catch up on that they were planning on doing. And I don't always, sometimes I get wrapped up in the conversations in the lobby. Like, even if I go and intend to be like, hey, I'll see you at 9. When you're in crisis, you want to talk about it. And so I kind of get caught up and then get distracted. Plus, similar to a voicemail, I would then have it in my head, what's going on.
Really good self-awareness. Really good self-awareness. So here's a question. What is the job of in-house staff?
In-house staff is there, like, they are kind of like on call. Like, they perform their regular duties, but they're there in case a crisis comes up. So I guess that technically is their job then.
So how do you think they would feel about you not letting them do their job?
That's a good point. Probably would get on my case and be like, hey, you're stressed out. You're trying to do too much. And they would probably kind of call me out on it a little bit, that that's what they're there for.
Right. And they're not going to feel competent if we don't trust them to do their jobs, just like we trust you to do your job.
That's a good point.
So maybe that's a better plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Eliminates that emotional piece and
That's
also supports the team dynamic.
Right. And we like that part of you, but sometimes is not the most useful. The part of you that makes you really good at the client work, but also, needs to have boundaries around.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we've come up with it, so let's let the in-house staff deal with those before work crises, and you do your paperwork in the morning, and I expect a report of what gets done this week.
And that's helpful.
Yeah. And then we'll revise the plan if we need to. But let's start with that. And, I think you're doing a good job, and I don't want to end up focusing. I hope we don't have to have these conversations too often, because I don't want to focus on the paperwork either.
Okay.
But it is what supports your position.
Yeah.
And so we do have to figure it out. So I appreciate your engaging in this conversation. And
Yeah.
that plan feel okay to you now?
It does. It actually feels better than I thought it was going to.
Okay.
'Cause I hate change, but I feel this is doable.
Okay.